think J. Cole can't win in the eyes of a lot of people. And this is not about his core fan base. He can win with his core fan base. But I think if you go to the album that he's released, The Fall Off, and this is not a review, this is just my assessments on some of the conversation that's taken place since his album has dropped. And also it's going to be about, you know, the perception that he's had, I think, from when his career started and the sound that he kind of has when it comes to his production choices and his rapping style, or just who he is as a person from what he's showed since he's come out as a rapper. This is not a defense of Cole. This is just an assessment. Like I said, I've heard stuff like his beats, you know, on this album, The Fall Off. His beats don't really sound, you know, expansive enough. It doesn't really have enough of maybe moments where it can stand out, you know, sonically, production wise. Oh, he should have an A&R. He should have gone and got an A&R to done his album. He should have used these producers, or he should have maybe, you know, got an assistance with maybe certain level of songwriters, whatever it was that they were saying about how he constructed his music. It was those kinds of statements. But then obviously with his core fan base, they're loving it. Yeah. So it's not to just focus on those people who are not his main fan base. It's just to make it clear that J. Cole, for example, can't win in certain people's eyes, in certain pundits' eyes, in certain music purists' eyes. He can't be the number one, because I'm sure in his mind, what he wanted to do on his album was fulfilled. When it comes to concepts, reference points, beats, he knows he can probably get an A&R, but he was comfortable with producing, with assigning some of those producers that were on his album. So I think he himself, the J. Cole person, him, that's not enough in the eyes of a lot of fans who are external of his audience to be crowned number one. Because we know the Drake, we know Kendrick. Those are the two that he's compared with. It's called the Big Three, right? But he and what he depicts and who he is not enough in certain people's eyes, because he's always had a stigma from when he first came about his production. I remember. He's always had a question on his sound, even saying his voice is a bit monotone. So Kendrick, Drake, they have music, I believe, in certain people's eyes that sound like hits, if you want to say. Well, I can't even do that because they do make hits. But the point is, they have a sound, production-wise, that consists of what is generally conducive of a hit in terms of the beats, in terms of the hooks. They have that sound that it looks like, okay, there was concerned efforts, for example, from Drake to make songs that are commercially viable as his career was starting to move on when he first came out, and then as, you know, he was progressing. Kendrick, eventually as time went on, you could see he made advances, or his sound was just as such that commercially it was viable because it was just undeniable. And we've seen J. Cole have moments where he's hit the charts and showed he can do those kinds of music, but he has chosen a certain lane. And him being himself doesn't seem it's enough for people at times to say he is the guy. And again, you can have your favorites. It's just the fact that I'm looking at it like, what can Cole do, if anything, to be the main guy? And I think people may say his production. People may say sometimes his lyrics, his concepts. But on this album, he fulfilled what he wanted. Make music for his audience and his home, North Carolina. His hometown was a focus. Him being 29 to 39 in that album, the depictions of both eras is what he wanted to do. But it seems that wasn't enough. Based on the commentary, again, people who are not his main fan base. Now you may say, oh, that's part and parcel of the game. People who are not his fans will have an opinion. That's probably not as favorable, but I think it's more than that, because he has been compared to those two, and maybe by default, that's the only reason he's being compared to, but maybe he just has his own sound that is unique to him. Just like Kendrick does, Drake does. So I'm basically saying, maybe he's just got a sound where this is what he wants. This is the the sound that he has, that is only what you're gonna get from him. So this is what this is who I am. You know, this is who I am. And it seems that's not enough for him to be crowned one of the best or the best. Because I'm sure, because he's from the era of your rapper's rapper era, his rapping style is an era where if you're a rapper's rapper, you want to be revered by legends. You want to be revered by hip hop culture as the number one. And I'm sure when he first came to the game, his aim was to be the number one. But I'm sure as time has gone on, that maybe attempts has probably been something that he's probably just said, you know what? Let me just focus on creating music and take that pressure off myself of potentially trying to be the rapper's rapper number one guy. He does rap in a competitive way though. So I'm sure as a rap purist as he is, he would have wanted that, right? That perception. But eventually when you keep going into the game and you're compared to certain people, you just have to create and let people make their own assessments. And it seems they've crowned Kendrick and Drake. It can change one or two, whoever, you know, you're a fan of, right? In terms of the perception of who you believe is one or who you believe is two. But it's not about, again, the comparison parts. It's just outside looking in the comments about his album. For example, they're talking about some of the concepts on here. Some of the things that he was trying to describe, it's like people weren't getting it. But some people's reviews on it, who are prominent, were making assessments that showed they weren't understanding it. That's not to the detriment of Cole. That's more to the lack of maybe taking it in properly. That's you not being able to pinpoint the reference points. Because are you really listening to the double CD properly? If you're not making the right assessments on the songs, but you may say it's down to interpretation. But there's some songs that were quite clear in terms of what he was trying to do. But I saw some of the assessments about him not having certain concepts that are deep enough, you know? So you've got to look at these things and think, okay, J. Cole being himself is not enough, you know? And again, have your opinions. But J. Cole, it seems he's comfortable with doing the music in the way you've heard it. I think he would want the respect from, like I said, pundits and you know, people who are outside of his fan base, because as a rapper, you want to be that guy. But I think the perception that sometimes has messed them up over the last couple of years was the fact that he didn't battle Kendrick. But the thing is, Kendrick and him were cool and are cool. But the fans gassed him to make him think that, yo, I need to battle. So he was going to go based off of the fans and the gassing that was taking place. But he backed out. So him being himself and saying, you know what, I assess this. I don't think it's right to do it. That's not enough in certain people's eyes. Oh, no, he should have battled. And as a purist that he is, he should know that he will get flack because of that. Because rappers who are considered the best over the years have had a battle. It doesn't mean you have to battle. It just shows that if there is a battle to be had, you dive in. If you fight well in a battle, you're still going to be given ratings generally, even if you lose. But if you fight well, prime example of fighting well, Jadakiss, Beans. That battle was perceived as, oh, Beans won it. Oh, no, Jadakiss won it. No, Beans really won it. So it's one of those ones where you still gave credit regardless. So it's not that he had to battle, but it's just, again, he can't win because he decided to assess the situation, be himself in that situation, use his own brain and think, you know what? Nah, that's not for me. But that wasn't enough for certain people. So that's a notch on his CV, if you want to say, to certain people who are outside of his fan base. Maybe his fan base will mess with that decision, or maybe not. But also, getting back to the production conversation about his beats over the years. Look, you can have an assessment on his beats, and that's fair, on any artist's beats and how they construct their music. Now, on this album, The Fall Off, he did have moments where it's like, okay, that song sounds like it can hit the charts. The Let Out is prime example of that. His sound on this album had a lot of that sound that you could say that had that southern influences. Some of the moments on there, you felt, for me anyway, it had a lot of that. Some of the choice of instruments, some of the choice of, I would say, some of the mandolins sort of sounds on the production. You can see the sort of influences he was going for from his background, from his upbringing of what he heard and then obviously implementing it in his music. The concepts, like I said earlier, these are all things I think he was very clear on. But I think he's got to a point where he's like, you know what? I'm up, number one. And number two, this is what I am. This is the music I'm giving you, fans. And whoever who's outside of my fan base, don't really check for it. Continue to have your opinion, because I'm still selling and doing my thing direct to consumer. And that's what he showed on this album, and obviously his rollout, and how he's, you know, connecting one to one with the fans. So it's just basically an assessment to say, if you have a stigma on you when it comes to anything you're doing, it seems you just have to continually do what's required. Focus on your fan base and focus on the right kind of noise, which is your fans. If they have a perception on it, that's different. If they have a gripe with it, that's different. Because then you can be in cahoots with them to know exactly, okay, this is the sort of direction I may need to go next. But then also, as an artist, you should be able to have that freedom to make music in the ways you want, or to create art in the way you want from time to time. And then obviously feed your fan base when it's required. Because sometimes you can listen to certain noises and listen to the wrong things. And I think on this album, J. Cole has focused on what he wants. He's been himself, it seems, even if it's not to certain people and to certain people's tastes. He's been himself from what I've heard. And I think that is showing that's enough for his fan base, but he can't win in the eyes of others to be number one. That's fair if you're a fan of other artists, but you have to look at it and think, are you being too harsh, purists? Are you being too harsh, other fans? Are you being too harsh, you know, the whole perception on him? I'm asking. It's all a question. Again, no dog in a fight. These are just questions, and these are perceptions that I've seen of how they've assessed his album and how they've assessed him over his career. And it gets to a point where you have to look at it and say, isn't he the rapper that you want in this game? On that higher level in terms of selling, don't you want your best rappers to be spitters? And it seems the criticism has been the thing that has been a part of his career. His sound, his beats, his monotone voice, some people say. And I think to myself, he's not really monotone. Guru, the rapper, was monotone. That's description of someone who was monotone. So these are things that it's like you're just wanting sometimes to find things, because every time you make an assessment on J. Cole, you're thinking of Kendrick and Drake. So when you make an assessment, you want him to be something that you want, as opposed to what he is himself. And what he's depicted in his career and on this album is himself. And he's fed his fan base. So maybe certain criticisms should be looked at a little bit more better. Because, as I said, if we complain sometimes, the purists, about rap lyrics not being as the main focus in mainstream rap, and we have J. Cole showing the mainstream that, hey, lyrics are still here and they've never gone, and the best rappers sell the most who are lyrically inclined. Do you have to criticize to this level that I've heard? Or is it fair to criticize because at the end of the day, this is what someone's assessment is of him, whatever it is, you know? Is it fair to criticize because people are allowed to criticize? And yes, they are. But are we doing the right things in terms of the people that are around this rap game and people that have a viewpoint? Are you doing the right thing when you're criticizing a rapper's rapper who has reference points, beats, lyrics, all on this album, and he did it in a way that he wanted to do it? So it will be interesting to find out what people think. For me, he's won in the eyes of his audience, but there's still a question, it seems, on him. But it doesn't matter to him, I'm sure, because at the end of the day, he's doing what he wants to do. He's made it as a rapper. So I think sometimes maybe this is just a teachable moment for some people. Focus on what's more important and focus on your audience. Focus on what you can do only with your art and stick to that. Because regardless, people are going to say something. And that's where you have to make your assessment. How are you going to think of what people are saying? And what are you going to focus on so you can continually keep moving? But let me know what people think. Like the video. And yeah, what's your opinion?